welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake LaMore, and in this episode, we have the privilege of speaking with Melvina Calvin Edwards, who's a groundbreaking figure in Kankakee's law enforcement community. Now, Melvina made history in 2005 as the first Black woman hired by the Kankakee Police Department, and now, nearly 2 decades later, she's being promoted to sergeant, marking another milestone in her career and, again, another stake in history in Kankakee County. Now, beyond her work in law enforcement, she's actually been dedicated to shaping the future of criminal justice education as the coordinator and assistant professor for Kankakee Community College's law enforcement program. Now, with her time at the department nearing its end, we'll dive into her journey and her impact on the community and what's next in her life and career. Welcome, Melvina.
Thank you.
It is so great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I got to give, of course, Dr. Jeff Williamson a shout out from Leadership Level Up Podcast and Converge. And Jeff is another person that's involved in so many things. He's a professor at Olivet once again. You first were on Leadership Level Up, his podcast. Mm-hmm. I was behind the scenes during the recording of that.
Yes.
And hearing your story was just so inspiring. And I was like, I instantaneously thought, I was like, ooh, like future guest for Kankakee Podcast right here. So thank you, Jeff. And so yeah, I'm glad we're sitting down and making this happen. But I think the first time I remember interacting with you when I was working on the radio.
Yes.
So I think we would interact on social media a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every time you would play a song, I'd send you a message. That's my jam.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes you'd give me a heads up on something that was going down. If it was like a traffic note or something, you'd be like, oh, well, this thing is going on. So yeah, no, thank you for that.
Yeah.
We always like to start at the very beginning, pretty much at every episode when we have someone like yourself on. So I'm trying to remember, is it you grew up in Donovan?
Beaverville. And went to Donovan.
Okay, so I was close.
Yes.
Okay. So growing, what was life like in Beaverville?
There was nothing really around, but it was fun because it was country life.
Yeah.
And at the time we didn't think of it, they were like, man, it's so boring, but it was actually fun because, you got to run in the rain with no shoes on, play. And you just had your neighbors. Everyone was so close around. So yeah, it was safe. Mm-hmm. It was very, very safe. Coming to Kankakee, one of the exciting things was that they have street lights. Street lights.
Oh,
yes.
Man.
Living out in the country, you didn't get the chance to see street lights.
You have such a fascinating story. And I don't mean fascinating in like, I mean, you lived through it and you're still living through it. Mm-hmm. You've really had a rough childhood. And I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just amazing that you are where you are today with going through that. And like I said, I feel like that's a lifelong thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you're still probably going through some of that and peeling back those layers.
Yeah. Yeah. My siblings and I, we talk about it often about, no one wanted 4 kids. No one wanted the 4 kids. And to have someone take all 4 of us in, it's remarkable. Who takes all 4 kids in?
Yeah. So what happened? Yeah. What was your parents' story?
So we all have different fathers, all 4 of us, but we have the same mother. And our mother had an alcoholic disease, so she couldn't stop drinking. So she gave up custody of us to our great aunt and uncle, which is our grandmother's aunt and uncle, grandmother. And so we went through life, through teens, our teenage years and adulthood without our mother. had some communication with her. But as you grow from, as me as a 4-year-old leaving her and growing up into teenage years, I always tell the story in my classroom about how I was embarrassed at the eighth grade graduation where she showed up. I was super excited. She showed up and completely inebriated. And I was so humiliated. And still to this day, my classmates will laugh about, some people will, I've had someone send me a note. Remember when in 8th grade, your mother showed up drunk? And I'm like, yeah, I remember that. But when I was in 8th grade, it was like humiliating, totally. But it's things like that you can get over. And I can use that in some of the stories that I tell in class, about how alcoholism affects youth. Things like that. So, but today, the 4 of us, we managed to grow up, have our own kids, not lose our kids either in the system of DCFS, to make sure that we take care of our kids, and that alcoholism doesn't, destroy our lives or take over our lives. So, yeah.
Did you make it a point not to ever drink yourself? I mean, have you found out like it's something that runs in your family?
Yeah, I guess it would run in our family. Yeah. However, I always make people laugh with this one because I don't drink only because, and my excuse is my clothes come off. I don't do it. I don't do it. And I always say, no one wants to see this. So I don't do it. And I've decided not to do that. So, and that's a story for another time.
Right. It just makes me think of, there's so many songs, but the one that comes to my mind, there's a country song I think the name of it is Tequila Makes Her Clothes Fall Off or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's a true testament.
Yeah. But I just don't, and it's not a thing for me anymore.
I guess the reason I was asking is just because, I mean, just seeing where you are today compared to how your mother was.
Right.
If you early on just made up in your mind, like, holy cow, I got to stay away from anything,
any alcoholism,
alcohol, any type of substance. Right. I just got to stay away from it because I've seen and
what it does heard. For an individual and their families. Mm-hmm. And I guess my husband and I, when I first met him, he didn't drink. And I was like, well, I had a glass of wine every now and then, but after I had my son, it wasn't something that was interesting to me. And it kind of faded off. And I didn't drink like every day or anything. Yes, it was just every blue moon, have a glass of wine with friends or something like that. But no, it's not a thing.
Were you legally adopted then by your great?
No.
Okay.
No, she had guardianship of us. But I ended up being a ward of the state, meaning that my mother still could step in, and take custody back, but she chose not to.
What was that dynamic like then? That would, I don't know, being a kid and having to think that no one fully owns me. If you who do I belong to? Like, it sounds like, the state has a piece of me. My mom has a piece of me. My grandparents or not grandparents, but you're a great aunt and uncle, you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they have a piece of me. Like, where do I belong?
Well, you know what? I knew, we had a great, we grew up in a great household, great aunt and uncle. They taught us how to fish. They taught us how to garden, so we really didn't, have, a longing for our mom, sort of. Yeah, I wanted her to be there. However, I knew she couldn't. There was other things that she was doing. that, I can't speak on what she was actually thinking, but no, they stepped in and they were great, and to where, we called them aunt and uncle, but after a while started calling them mom, mom, dad, things like that. And no, they stepped up. It wasn't like we missed out on anything, really. I mean, they took us on trips. We still got vacations, things like that. What I want to say is that it did affect me when I was in high school, where a lot of teens had their parents come to games. My aunt and uncle were older, 70s, 80s. They couldn't make it to the games. So I didn't have really anyone to see me play except for the parents. Basketball.
Okay.
And I did some dancing, some dance.
Okay.
But that was where it affected me. Like, I don't have anybody to come into the games. However, a lot of parents from Donovan stepped up and, cheered me on, and which is great. And I had a neighbor, and her parents were my biggest cheerleaders. So, I mean, I didn't really have anyone, or I had a lot of people there for me. However, I didn't really miss out on that, parent not cheering me on, because I had a whole community.
Yeah.
The community stepped up. So, yeah. Yeah.
So when did law enforcement then get placed into your brain? Because it sounds like you were a decent kid, right? Or
I was. I have to thank Mr. Bianchetta. He was my high school or 7th or 8th grade principal at the time, I believe. And one of the things that he did was I was always getting into trouble with people who had disagreements. I was always the one in the middle, trying to split it up. But however, they thought that I was the one that was getting in trouble.
That's how I feel.
Right. Yeah.
That's me to a T. I'm always the person, it seems like, in the middle.
Right. But I was always, the little one in the middle. And I'm like, no, you stop. No, you. And he pulled me into the office one day and he said, every time there's something, you're involved. And I'm like, I don't know what I do. But he didn't understand that I was always the one that was like, hey, you can't have a disagreement. I was always the one stepping in. And he told me, he said, I figured it out that I think I know what you need to be when you get older. And I was like, really? He said, I want you to do a paper on the police. Like what it takes to be a police officer. And I'm like, I have no interest in being the police. And after I did my paper, I turned it in, and that was what started. I was like, I think this is where I want to go. I want to be the police because I'm good at diffusing situations. And he said, yep, that's exactly where you want to get to. You want to get there. But the problem was I didn't know how. So while everyone in high school was trying to figure out their future of what schools they're going to, things like that, I didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
I just figured, okay, if there's a job opening, maybe I'll go and test for it or go and just put an application in. But one of the parents of a friend of mine in high school, and I was part of JTPA, Job Training Partnership Act.
Okay.
She ended up giving me a full ride to KCC.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
And that is where it began. And she said, hey, they've got a great law enforcement program. And I think that you would be able to, be a great student there. And I was like, small college. I wasn't the smartest person in high school, however, or in my class, but I was like, I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
Now, the problem was trying to figure out how I was going to get there.
Yes.
And then I had never heard of KCC. So I was like, okay, just got to figure out where it's at. How do I get there? And
it's so wild to think about now because now you teach there.
Now I teach there. I know. And to think that at the time in high school, I had no clue about KCC. We had everyone from different colleges come in. I remember Robert Morris College coming in, and I had no clue where that was at. I remember all these colleges, but I don't remember KCC.
Yeah.
And once I graduated and I went there, and it's so funny that when I stand in the classroom and I point to the seat that I used to sit in the front row, I'm like, I used to sit right here. where you're sitting at.
Yeah.
And I try to get the students to understand that all you have to do is show up. Just show up. That's what I did. And it worked out for me. It worked out, and I got a degree, So, but, and to work with other people at KCC that I sat in the classroom with, like Toby Fulford, we work together now, and it's really, really interesting. Both of us trying to be the police, to going to school, trying to get a degree. And that's the most interesting story.
I think you have an extra appreciation for being there because you didn't even envision going to KCC. You didn't know what KCC was. And all of a sudden you're introduced to it.
Yes.
You get a full ride.
Yes.
Next thing you know, you're teaching there. You're a professor there. Like it's wild. It's a full circle moment for yourself. Coming from a Black family and having that and going into law enforcement, was that encouraged? Had you, because we've all been told and heard in things over the years, the treatment, the different treatment that Black or it doesn't have to be Black. It could be any color skin or just background. It doesn't have to be skin. It could be your sex or your religion or whatever it is. Did you ever see or encounter anything like that? Was there any discouragement of you going into law enforcement because of?
No, but I can tell you one thing. My aunt and uncle, they told us little bits and pieces about when they were, back in the 50s, 60s, how they were treated. I do remember when I was inside our home and the police showed up to our house one time looking for someone. I don't remember what it was, but I remember them being outside of the fence, and she said, don't go to the window. Just don't go to the window. And I was young. I didn't know what was going on. And she lifted the window up and talked to him outside of the window. I couldn't tell you what they wanted or what they were looking for, but she gave them the information outside of the window and then closed the window. I do feel like there wasn't a lot of trust in the police back then. When I was growing up, I just didn't know. And we didn't have police in our lives, because we lived out in the country. And I remember one.
If you saw one, it was like a rare
It was like,
occurrence.
whoa, there's the police,
Whoa,
right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember them coming to Donovan, just doing a walkthrough. And I remember all of us, we stopped, like, the police, what are they here for? And then the rumors would spread, like, what are they here for? What's going on?
Yes.
And it was interesting for me because when I did decide what I wanted to do, I admired them. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at them. I admired
I gotta go
everything.
talk to them right now.
Right. I wanted to so bad, but I was, and a little afraid to approach them. But I have to say they were always respectful. Remember, it was Iroquois County.
Yes.
Always respectful. And we just never, didn't have the courage to go up and say anything to them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So when you went to KCC, did you, what exactly is their, or I guess at that time, what was their law enforcement education like?
Lecture.
Lecture? That's it?
It was a lot of lecture. And stories from Mr. Fisher. He was great. Absolutely wonderful. And I base my teaching off of him and other styles off of some other instructors that I've had throughout my educational career. One thing that I've added to the way I'm teaching is hands-on.
You're bringing a lot of your students to different places and things, right? It's almost like field trips, or you're bringing people in.
Or bringing people in.
Yeah, if you're not bringing them somewhere, you're...
Yes.
Yeah.
And also hands-on. We do a lot of hands-on. I want them to experience different things. This semester, I'm trying to bring in some forensics and hands-on things, blood analysis, stuff like that. So,
okay.
yeah. So that's the difference. just combining everyone that I've had before, and just strategically mixing them all together, the way they teach, and then giving it back to the students.
I guess I was just curious as to, like what was the law enforcement program like at that time? What, did you go, get your associates and then, or do so much class time and then you could be a corrections officer, or how did all that work, or how did it work for you, I guess, to be more specific?
So Mr. Fisher, I remember him saying that, it would be great for you if you would go on a ride along. So that was what they were pushing back then. Just go on a ride along, see if you like it, and then you can come back and then decide what do you want to do, whether you want to be a lawyer, where you want to be. That's how it went. And then once I came back from a ride along, one of the things that I did was I just determined that, I want to be a patrol officer, because that was where the action was. Patrol is where I want to be. I don't want to be KMEG. I don't want to be SWAT. I want to be patrol, because you see things every day different.
The way I look at it, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I look at a patrol officer kind of like a general practice medical doctor, where they're seeing patients of all kinds of different things. And then, the other, like KMEG, like they're like the specialist.
Right.
So they're like the podiatrist or whatever, as far as that's concerned. At least that's how I always looked at it. KMEG's strictly dealing with drugs. And a SWAT is strictly dealing with hostage situations or things, similar to that.
Yeah.
Was the Kankakee Police Department the first place you applied for?
No.
And got into, or is that where you started? Like, you started there and you're still there today.
Correct.
You've never worked for any other department.
No one else.
So how many places did you apply for?
27 police departments. And I kept getting no, or else I failed either the written test or one department I remember was Oak Park. They told me that I failed the psychological, and I was like, really?
And do they tell you like what you failed in the psychological?
They sent me a letter. Okay. Yes. And then I had a couple of departments where I failed the run. The physical agility.
I've heard
because
that.
You do. 27 police departments. I'm tired.
Yeah.
So I failed. I failed, and it was okay. But I kept going back to Kankakee, and I'm like, I've got to make this one. This is the one.
Was that your dream department?
That was my dream department.
Why was that your dream department? It was just because it was close to where you grew up?
Right.
Or?
Yeah. Okay. And then on top of it, you do a ride along so many times, it's just like, that's where I want to be. And then I did my internship twice with them. I did one for a bachelor's degree, and then I did one for my master's degree. And
that was all before you were actually patrolling
for
them?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that all. For some reason, I thought that those degrees came after.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I finished my master's degree, and then I became police.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought you were a police officer while you were doing that.
No. My doctorate.
Your doctorate is when. Oh, okay. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
Because that's when you had Dr. Jeff Williamson.
Yes, correct.
For
correct.
Professor. Okay,
yes.
Gotcha. It's all tying into my brain now.
Yes.
Did you just apply once for the Kankakee?
Twice.
So what happened the first time?
The first time, I don't think they got to my name. I think I was number 11, 12, 13.
So is it like
14.
a lottery?
No, it's 25 people on a list.
Okay.
So that was my first time.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of people had military, so then they put them above, and then the second time.
Well, do you want to explain how that works a little bit for those that aren't familiar? Like, I'm just curious, how does that work?
Yes.
You're talking about this list and.
Yes. So you will do a physical agility test. Where you do sit-ups and run and bench press. And sit and reach. So once you pass that, you will take the written test, and it's 8th grade level pretty much. It really is 8th grade level, little math, little reading, some writing on there. Then after you're finished with that, then you'll do an interview. And after you're finished with the interview, they score you. Out of 25 people, you get scored. Now, out of the 25 people, you have a chance, if you have military points, you can give them your military credentials and they will give you points, which will move you up on the list. So let's say you're number 8 or 9, you get military points, you can move up, depending on what they scored you on your interview and you passing the written test and things like that. So yeah, so I ended up, I think I'm number 4, on the second list that I had tested, but I didn't hear anything. And I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to explore. So I called an uncle that was living in California at the time. And I said, you know what? It's time for me to move out of here. And he goes, okay, I'll help you. He says, where do you want to go? I said, Albuquerque, New Mexico. I don't know.
Albuquerque.
That's a different story.
Random.
Let me just tell you.
That's all.
A friend of mine and I, we were working at Riverside. We spun a globe. Not kidding you. Spun a globe, and wherever our finger landed, that was where we were going.
Were you doing security at Riverside?
Yes, I was doing security at the time. And our finger landed on Albuquerque, New Mexico. Not kidding you. And we laughed about it. We were like, yeah, what's in Albuquerque?
Out of the places that you could choose.
I know. Albuquerque. And we actually went to visit. We liked it.
Yeah, and
we liked
it. You ended up moving there.
We were going to.
Oh, okay.
I was packing my stuff up, and the chief called and said, "Hey, why is it that you're not in my office?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he says, "You got hired." I said, "I don't know anything about being hired. No one told me." And he said, "Yeah, you were supposed to be sworn in. You've got about an hour to get here." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." He goes, "Throw on some clothes and get here." So I did.
How did you miss that?
I don't know.
So bizarre. Who was chief at that time?
Kincaid.
It was Kincaid.
Kincaid, yes.
Okay.
So I ended up getting sworn in, buying my uniforms within like 3 days, and then off to the academy.
Which police academy did you go to? There's one down at U of I?
Correct. PTI, right? Police Training Institute. That's where I went. And it was the greatest. What
was it like for a woman? I want to give a shout out to, Officer Travis Garcia from the Bourbonnais Police Department. He was I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the very first police officer we had on the show. And we walked through some of that, but obviously he's a man. What's it like for a woman?
There were a lot of females in my class.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of females from Rockford. I had one female, another African-American female from Decatur. And she has since gone into a different career. But she was great. She walked up to me and she says, "You ready to do this?" And I said, "Okay."
Yeah.
We're the only 2 African-American females.
So you had to bond right away. I shook her
hand right away. And I said, "Listen, I'm not good at running." She said, "Just stay on my heels." She said, "Because I ran track." And I go, "Oh, I'm on it." And I stayed on her heels and I made it. Okay. So yeah, you take it when you first get there and then you take it before you graduate and you're done.
And how long is that?
You know what?
You don't remember?
I don't know exactly. Yeah. I know mine was 12 weeks. I think maybe there's a 16 weeks now. I'm not for sure though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you remember then from after, you graduate from the academy and you're on, your first patrol? What do you remember? This would have been what, 2005, 2006, yes. Right? By the time I don't know. I guess it just depends on what time of the year in 2005 that you were hired.
December. I came back from the academy in December.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I guess we're talking 2006 then.
Yeah.
What was the Kankakee Police Department like at that time, and just the city as a whole?
Busy. We were busy. Not like now. I mean, some kids, on the force think it's busy. Now it was busy.
When you say busy,
a lot of calls. We had a lot of calls for domestics, fights. It was just a lot. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Man, call. It was a lot of fun.
It's fun for you because you like smoothing over conflicts. Is that because it seems like, going back to what you said earlier, it sounds like you have a knack for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that the fun part, or what was when you say, I'm just curious as to,
Yeah, I guess solving conflicts is fun. But I think I like going from call to call to call. Just different.
Is
different
there
calls.
An adrenaline
I think so.
rush
Yeah,
for you that
I think
comes
so.
with that?
Yeah.
Is it the just excitement of the unknown? Like you just don't know.
You don't know what you're walking into. You don't know. And after you're finished, you're like, that was fun. Yeah, that was interesting. And and for myself, now being a senior officer and watching those that are just coming onto the force, I always let them know, I'm been here for a long time. So if you see me standing a certain way, and I'm not supposed to be like that, let me know. Because just because I'm a sergeant doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. So let me know what they're doing in the academy now. What are they doing differently? If you see me doing something, let me know.
Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, how often I imagine and I'm sure it varies between departments, but there has to be some refreshers and retrainings and all that going on all the time.
All the time.
So
yeah,
but there has to be some stories from those early days though that stick out in your mind.
I'll tell you one. Okay. So this is a funny one. So I was on patrol on K-13, and which is I was right at the corner of Oak and I'd say Oak and Wildwood, and dispatcher got on the radio and said, all units be aware of a squad car that was just stolen. And so I perked up right away. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Squad car stolen. Yeah.
Okay. And they're telling them that it's on Oak. And I'm like, I'm on Oak. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. I'm on Oak. And I'm super pumped because I'm working by myself for I believe this is first or second day that I get to work by myself.
See, that was one thing I was going to ask you too, is if you had a partner or
no.
you. Oh, wow.
No. So I was super.
Because isn't everyone partnered up now? Or
no.
am I? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
There are still a lot of solo.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, so I'm listening very carefully, and they're going east on Oak, and I'm like, okay, I should be coming up to them, So I'm on Oak, and then all of a sudden they're saying, go to Wildwood, and I'm like, I'm at Wildwood. So I'm like, I get on the radio, I'm like, CANCOM, I'm sorry, but I don't see them anywhere. Can they give a description? And they say, it's a kid. They can see the kid, and they're in the squad car. Now they're stopped. And I'm like, where they stopped at? Oak and Wildwood. I'm like, CANCOM, I'm at Oak and Wildwood.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were talking about me.
Oh my God.
I was the kid that a person called in and said stole the squad car.
Oh my God.
Because I was so short that they thought that I stole the squad car.
Well, okay, was someone pulling a prank?
No,
or was this
they were
legitimate?
Serious.
Was this called in by a resident?
A resident called it in.
Oh my!
And the dispatch gave it out, and I said,
"Oh my God,
I'm at Oak and Wildwood," and they were like, "Well, okay," and you could hear the laughter. You can hear the laughter. I'm like, "Yeah, that's me."
Oh my gosh!
No squad car is stolen. It was me.
Hopefully that only happened once.
Yeah.
Right?
But I do remember when I first got there, I had to sit on a phone book because I couldn't see. And I remember one squad car, I had to hold on to the steering wheel because the seat was broken. It was kind of broken to the side. So I had to hold on to the steering wheel and try to drive. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But I got called in as stealing a squad car.
Man, I did not think that's what you were going to tell me.
Yes.
Man,
that was when we had those Fords.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The Interceptors. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was really embarrassed too because I was like, oh. Wow.
Right. You're like,
yeah, right. It's me.
And you're like, yeah, I'm probably the shortest person on the force.
Yes.
And yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
In the past 20 years, you're saying you're saying it was busy. Compared to now,
yeah.
What are the biggest differences that you see in like the calls that were happening then and things that are happening now? And it doesn't have to just be in the police department because I feel like whatever's going on in the entire city affects. Like you guys see I feel like the police department sees the effects of that, right?
Yeah.
Of whatever is going on in the city at the time.
I'd have to say it's just respect. There was more respect back then.
You don't think there's as much respect now?
Depending on who you're dealing with. I think that's what the difference is. It's I want to say that.
And you're talking like resident to police officer respect, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Depending on what call you go to. But I mean, that's just my opinion though, that I see.
Yeah.
The difference, from starting to now.
I'm actually surprised to hear you say that because
Really?
I would think the opposite.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess, I don't know, from the outside.
But you're not the one that's calling.
But see, right. No, I'm not
Right.
I'm not the one that's calling. I'm not even the one that's there on the calls. But I don't know. I guess in the past, I don't know how many years, I just see, it seems like there's more support for police officers
right in the community.
In the community, yeah.
Right.
But I guess that doesn't reflect your calls.
Calling on. Yeah, right. Yeah, showing up. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think that has anything to do with you being a woman or the color of your skin?
No,
or no?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I think it's just different times.
Yeah.
Different times. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things that pour into that we can dive into.
Right. Yeah. I mean, music, things like that.
So when you think back on this being the first, you were the first, you were the first woman.
First black woman.
You were the first black woman police officer. When you figured that out, what was the first thought on your mind?
Well, I had some people challenge me though on it because some people said I wasn't the first. Apparently, and I don't know the story, there was an African-American female that was hired but didn't go to the academy, quit the next day or something. I don't know the story, but that was what I was. I mean, a lot of people are like,
you've got the longevity. You've got 19, 20 years under your belt.
I guess I'm the first that went to the academy and finished. How about that?
Yeah,
how about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know whom the other person was. But yeah, I'm the first one. And when I first got here, it wasn't a big deal to me because if you think about it, I was the only African American in my class.
I thought it was. Oh, and Donovan. Okay.
Yeah, in my class.
Yeah.
No, that
doesn't shock me.
Yeah.
Donovan.
But you understand.
Yeah, right.
So it wasn't a big deal for me.
So when you heard it, you just okay. You didn't have any moments of oh my gosh, this is a really big responsibility.
Right. No.
You didn't? No.
No. It was just I went on. Yeah. So the same thing with this one, being the first as a first to be a sergeant. It's like I've been the first a lot of times.
Yeah, you have.
I've been the first
twice.
A lot of times. Yeah.
I just I just think it's such a cool. It's got to be such a proud moment for you.
Yes. Because I know that there are other African American girls that want to, or females that want to become the police, and they just don't know how. And I'm getting emails and I'm, starting to get them to come out and say, I think I want to be the police instead of corrections. I'm like, yay. Because it's always like corrections. I'm like, oh no, but yeah.
Not to say there's anything wrong with corrections.
Right.
Someone's got to do it.
Exactly. But I'm really super pumped that there's going to be more in this area.
Yeah.
Because, I went to training a couple months ago and I sat in the classroom and I looked around the room and I'm like, I have more African American females in here. And I'm like, where are you from? And they're from up north, and which I was super excited about. I'm like, Usually when I go to training, I don't see us. I don't see us. And they're like, yay. Yeah. They're like, yeah, there's with their, I think one department, I can't remember the name of it, but she said they had like 5. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what's it been like then, in the city of Kankakee Police Department for you then, being that, I mean, you're already, just being a woman, you're already kind of narrowed down, but then being a Black woman, then that's another notch down.
Yeah.
What has that experience been like?
I've been fine. I stay in my lane, do what I got to do.
Yeah.
Go to work, do what I'm asked to do, and leave. But for those that's coming behind me, I do let them know that, we will be utilized for certain things when it comes to community events. So we have an advantage there. So like for Black History, we need to use that as an opportunity to get more, to try to be an example for those in the community. Natisha Brantley, who is a rookie who has been there for, I believe, 2 years, has been great. And I really, really am proud of her for sticking it out. I'm like, yep, I'm glad you're here.
Do you remember,
glad that she's staying.
Do you remember some, I mean, without getting like super personal or anything, do you remember any moments or conversations you had with her since she's been on the force?
Oh, we have a lot of conversations.
I'm sure you do. Yeah.
A lot of conversations.
But just moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I can really sympathize with you on that, or be like, look, like, just.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to get into it.
That's what I'm saying. Without,
yes. And I have to say that I'm hoping that when I leave, she'll be able to continue her career there. I really am hoping that she'll be able to continue her career and it be successful. And I'm hoping that it'll be a long career there. So
I'm sure, like, what were some pieces of advice you gave her when...
Don't let them get to you.
Yeah.
Don't let them get to you.
Just everyone? Or just when you say don't let them, who are we talking about?
Just in general. Just don't let them get to you. Don't take this job home with you.
Oh my God. I can only imagine.
Take the job
how do you not do that?
Let me just say this. When I leave there, I have so much stuff in my head. When I leave there, I make sure that I leave it in the office. I walk out and I'm automatically thinking about my family, KCC. I'm thinking about things there. And I'm not thinking about what happened during the night or whom I upset or who upset me. I leave it there. And it's work-family conflict and then family-work conflict. I don't want to bring whatever's happened at my house into the job because it's going to affect me when I'm on the streets, when I'm trying to guide those that are on my shift. So I try to have like a counseling when people come to me and say, don't let that bother you. You got to move on. There's other things that are higher that you need to be concerned about. Because if you keep doing that, you're going to let this job get to you to where you're not going to have a successful career. You can't do it. You have to keep moving on. That's how I've made it these last 19 years. Don't take it personal. Just keep it moving.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
For longevity purposes. Yes, otherwise you burn yourself out.
You burn yourself out.
I imagine. Is there a big difference between, putting on or taking off the police cap and putting on the educator hat? Is there a big difference between those two Melvinas, or are you about, do you feel like there's a big difference between when you're teaching at KCC versus when you're on the streets?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I am two different people.
Yeah.
I am. I get excited when I walk into the classroom, and I am a totally different person, and I talk differently. My behavior is different. My mannerism is different. And I'm different because I want students to come to me, and I want them to ask me questions, because, I've only got 7 months and 3 days left, so I want them to, and I try to explain what went on in a call or anything like that. But yeah, I am totally different. And I don't think the students have ever seen me as a police, in my police role. I don't think they've ever seen me.
Yeah. I just wonder, like, there has to be a time where you came across a student or former student or something when you've been maybe on patrol.
Yes.
And maybe they've experienced you like that. And that has to be such a different.
Yes. I had one ride along with me, and she rode all the way till, we were there for a long time. We did a shift 5:00 in the morning, and I ended up staying just like a couple hours later, and she got to see everything. She said, "Wow, I didn't know that your demeanor could change like that." I said, yes, it can.
And what is when she said that?
Well, she was like, "You're really nice, but I never saw that you could change like that." I was like, "Yeah, I can." I go into a different role when I'm on a call and someone upsets me and I have to put them in their place. Yeah, you saw that. I'm sorry. Sorry that you saw that. And she's like, "No, it was interesting. It was very,
wow,
that was awesome. I never thought that would come from you." Yeah,
right.
That came from me. Yeah. So yeah.
I guess that's the nurturing person that is the educator versus the person that's kind of like, got to keep things together. This, yes, this is how it is.
And then when I get home, I have to take everything off.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'm not the educator. I'm not the police officer. I am mom. And
yep.
Mom sometimes forgets that she's mom and not the police. And I have to go, "Oh, no, you know what? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not demanding. I can't demand you to do that. I'm sorry." So I have to apologize.
Yeah. You really got 3 different personalities going on.
Yeah.
What do you want people to know? You're a piece of Kankakee history, Kankakee County history. What is it that you want them to know you by or remember you by? Or
I guess everyone always says I'm a nice officer. I treat people the way I would want to be treated. That is my number one thing. I want you to experience what I would want. So if you're stranded, I always think to myself, if there's someone stranded here, what would I want the officer to do? And I have done it every time, like, you're stranded here. Let me see if I can find them some help. If I can't find them help, I'm going to have to pull it out of my pocket to see if I can get them to where they need to go. That's what I'm going to have to do. So in order for me to, get this call over with and then continue on my journey, and for them to continue on their journey, and I've had so many people that say, "Man, I really appreciate it," and they'll send me a text message or whatever. "I made it. Good. You made it. I'm glad," and they'll say, "Hey, I'm going to cash app you the money back." I'm like, "No need. No need. Don't worry about it. As long as you made it," and I always say, especially the ones that were either from Chicago or some other place, they always say, "We never had police that have been nice to us like that." And I'm like, "Oh, well, this is Kankakee. Yeah. This is what we do. We try our best to do what we can, because putting yourself in their place is the number one thing. Try to figure out, if I was in their place, what would I do?
Yeah. How would you be reacting?
Right.
What would you be feeling?
How would I feel? So, to come upon a police officer that's going to help. And plus, it makes us look good, too, as the police department.
Oh, yeah.
And for the community. They're like, "Man, Kankakee was really cool."
Yeah, Kankakee was awesome. I want to go back there.
Yeah,
the police officers were really nice. There must be a lot of nice people there.
Yep. If
the sergeant was so nice to me, I'm sure, the person at the bar is going to be nice, and wherever they go.
Yes,
festival,
exactly. So I'm always constantly thinking about the community. what can I do for the community to make us look better?
And you do that through your education, too.
Yes.
Yeah. Through a Black woman's lens, since this episode is coming out during Black History Month, how does Kankakee look through that lens of Black history and how, whether it's something we can improve upon, or maybe it's just like, no, like this is really good, or, maybe one thing is not so good. I was just curious because I can't see through your eyes and vice versa,
For me, and it's hard. It really is hard. I had a conversation with the chief on this one, trying to get African Americans to be on the police department. It's really hard. We need to mirror our community. And we've had that conversation, but I don't have I don't know what we can do for that. We try to get people to join, but and I think it's just going to take a little bit of time. We've got to get over this hump.
Yeah.
Of people still thinking that police brutality, things like that. I think it's just going to take a little time, and then we'll start to have more African Americans, more Hispanics, and I see it in the classroom. Right now, currently, I don't have a lot of African American students in law enforcement, but Hispanic wise,
There's quite a few. Okay.
I do, and which is nice.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I'm hoping that I'll be able to get them to take the tests for different departments so that we can get them out there in our county to work either not just police, but corrections, dispatching. We can get them to work probation, courthouse, somewhere. Okay. But, and I'd like to, and which I have done in the past. I've gone to the schools and just being there, showing up for the little ones. They can see that there's a Black female, that can be the police, and not to be afraid of them, So I think that we need to start at the schools. Start at the schools and get in there so that way they can see I can be the police, no matter what my skin color is. But I think for our police departments, and not just Kankakee City, Bradley, Herscher, wherever, let's get in there and find out, be role models for these kids. And especially in our high schools, find out who is, interested in being a police. That's what I'm trying to, with my busy schedule, I'm trying to see if I can get some days to where I can visit some high schools to get them to be interested, have an interest in law enforcement. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the police.
Right. There's many,
there's many avenues, many avenues. Yeah. If you wanted to be a lawyer, start at the college. Mm-hmm. Be interested in, take some classes, even if you're going for, I have some students that are nursing students that are taking law enforcement, because they like it. They don't, they might have to, they might be able to do something on the side.
Sure.
If it doesn't work out with nursing, but, that's what I'm interested in doing. Now you got me thinking, maybe I should do something when I retire.
Well, you're right. I'm sure your education platform will continue, and grow once you're no longer at the department.
Yeah.
So, and as you mentioned earlier, you got 6-7 months or so left at the department before you completely retire.
If they don't talk me into staying a little bit longer.
Which they might. Kind of just, I'm sure you've been having some self-reflection as that time nears. And what does that self-reflection look and feel like for you?
I guess, did I make an impact? And who did I make an impact with? I don't know. I guess, hopefully I wasn't too harsh with anyone. You know what I'm saying? You got me up here about to tear. I guess my high school students, that is one of the things that I am so proud of. I really am. Some of the high school students still come to me and they're like, I'm sorry, I'm about to cry.
No, it's okay. Like when you've gone in to like teach.
Yeah.
Because the different, some of the schools, they have a police officer come in for like, what, like a week or two and just teach about law enforcement, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No, a school resource officer.
That's
yeah,
right.
Because I was school resource officer for 9 years.
Yeah.
So I had an impact on those students.
Yeah.
And so when I see them at the gas station and they say, man, you were so awesome as my school resource officer, I'm like, yay. And I might not remember their name because they were such good students.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those situations where like so many people know you, but you don't remember them.
Right. But just seeing them grow up and have an impact on me now, because I sit at the Y with my son and I sit next to a student that I used to have at the high school, and our sons are playing together.
Oh my God. Isn't that so?
And I'm like, this is so great.
Yeah.
That's what, and I sit back and I think to myself, they always tell me, man, you were great to me when I was in high school. You don't know what I was going through. And I'm like, that's good. That makes me feel good, So yeah.
Well, I would say it sounds like you've made quite an impact.
Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service and just everything you've done for the community. It sounds like you've made some big waves.
I hope so.
Yeah. So anything else that you want to?
No, I don't think so. Add? You're going to continue to make me cry. I just think about my high school students. I miss them so much, That was my number one thing, being a school resource officer. Loved it in my career.
Yeah.
And a DARE officer.
Yeah. I was going to say, I could definitely see you doing well with that.
And I'll miss being safety pup. I will.
Oh, that's right. You're safety pup for people that don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I will. And I'll miss that. I have a safety puppet in my office that every time I look at it, I remind me of like, oh, I missed that.
They might call you back just for like, hey, no one else can fit.
We are trying to find one right now. We're trying to find someone.
Really?
Yeah, the rookies. We're trying to get one of them to take over. But when you do it for so long, it's like now I have to teach someone else, and it's kind of heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
So
to be safety pup, it's a special job.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, Melvina, thank you so much.
You made me cry.
I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to.
Made me cry.
I was not trying to.
Yeah.
But, thanks for doing this.
Well,
and, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Not a problem. Not a problem. So, But hopefully our community will continue on that journey of being a great community, and we'll be fine. Yeah, I'll still be out in the community. I'll still be here.
I'll
still be up for KCC though. Yep. Just different. And I'll still help the police department whenever they need me to.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll be busy. I can't imagine you just laying down and
No, KCC's not going to let me be.
No.
Just sitting around. No, I have to be busy. Mm-hmm. I'll be out there in the community.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll be busy all the time. So yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate this. Let me know if you need me to do this again. This is fun.
Yeah, no, we should.
I like this conversation.
Yeah, there's, like I said, there's so many different avenues we can go down just because you have lived so many different experiences.
Yes.
So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
A lot. There's a lot.
So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Not a problem.
That wraps up this episode of Kankakee Podcast. I'm Jake LaMore. Thank you so much for listening. Please tap that subscribe button if you haven't already. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Kankakee Podcast. Shout out to Jeff and Rosa Carroll for supporting the show each month through Patreon. If you want your name announced on a future episode, sign up at patreon.com/Kankakee Podcast. Special thanks to our sponsors, Chicago Dough Company, Noble Dairy Queen Stores, KCC's Office of Continuing Education and Business Partnerships, Frank's Appliance Center and Sleep Source, Pig Gosh Engineering, King Music, Little Me Studio, Edward Jones Financial Advisor Adam Elroy, Taco John's, D. Westfall Jewelers, Nana's Bakery, and Stafari West Avenue. Kankakee Podcast is produced by the fine team at Pathfinder, a full-service marketing agency in downtown Kankakee. Learn more at yourpathfinder.io. Our theme song is by Lupe Carroll.
This river carries on.